Hello, and welcome to EcoGrip Flooring. This installation training presentation is designed to teach and educate all levels of flooring installation on the details of installing EcoGrip flooring. In this video, you'll learn everything from proper tools and safety tips to handling your final installation checklist. We sincerely appreciate your interest in EcoGrip and hope you'll find this training both informative and educational.
When your pallet arrives, it's important to carefully inspect it for any visible signs of damage. Make sure you count and receive the quantities that you will need for your project. Unload the pallet safely to avoid damaging the sheets. Take note of the directional sticker on the surface of each sheet. This sticker will include the color, lot number, as well as indicate which direction to lay the sheets. If they are not installed in the same orientation, they will show the changes in direction as potential shading. EcoGrip sheets and materials need to be stored, acclimated, and installed between 60 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Organize the sheets in a flat work area with no slope. Make sure the sheets are stacked with all four corners aligning for easier access throughout the installation process. Subfloor preparation is key to a durable and successful installation. EcoGrip flooring can be installed on a variety of subfloors, including concrete, tile, epoxy, and marine-grade plywood. Each subfloor type has specific preparation requirements. For new construction and remodel projects, it's essential to scarify all rough or uneven spots present on the surface for better adhesion. We recommend using a 7-inch grinder with a vacuum attachment to remove any loose debris. This will ensure the surface is properly abraded for a strong mechanical bond between the subfloor and the adhesive. After scarifying, vacuum thoroughly to remove any dust or debris. For concrete floors, check for moisture content and relative humidity, as excessive moisture can affect adhesion. RH levels should be 95% or less for a successful installation. Ensure the drain height is set at 1/4 inch above subfloor. This will allow a flush transition from the drain fixture and the EcoGrip flooring. Measure every drain fixture for stainless steel collars, adding 1/8 inch to each measurement. All plumbing fixtures and floor penetrations must be fitted with either stainless circular collars or square flanges. This includes flow drains, floor sinks, cleanouts, grease traps, trench drains, and access lids. Prepare the concrete with a concrete prep wheel to promote a strong adhesive bond. Vacuum the area. Add Portland-based cement where needed to achieve the correct drain height. Smooth out any rough concrete with self-leveler. Any subfloor imperfections will telegraph through the EcoGrip once it's installed. Make sure the subfloor is completely smooth, clean, and dry before continuing. Before routing the sheets, it's crucial to let them acclimate to the room temperature. Stack them in the work area upside down, ensuring proper air circulation. The integral wall base is created by working from the bottom side of the sheet and routing 1/8 inch or roughly 50% of the material, and use a plunge router set to a depth of 1/8 inch to achieve the proper relief route needed for the cove. Once turned over to the service side, you will be able to bend and create a 3/8 inch radius where the base meets the floor. A standard fixed router can be used, along with a 3/4 inch straight cut bit. Check the radius of your router and add that measurement to the height of the base you want to achieve. Standard wall base is always 6 inches. In this demonstration, we are using a 3-inch router offset. We then add the 6-inch wall base to the 3-inch router offset and get 9 inches. That's where the straight edge is placed to router at 6 inches. Begin routing and laying out the sheets, paying attention to directional labeling on the material. Start your layout by routing the wall base for inside and outside corners. While one team member routes the base, other crew members can continue prepping the substrate. Inside corners, doorways, and stopping points should all be routed and laid out with precision.
Precision there.
When handling partitions and staggered layouts, mark all points and cuts carefully to ensure tight-fitting sheets. EcoGrip flooring mandates a staggered layout to ensure there are no 4-way seams. There should never be a 4-way seam as part of your layout. Achieve an integral wall base by making multiple passes with the router to deepen the grooves as needed. Though most of base will be integral cove base created with the router, there will be areas where we need to use stack flat base. All walls that face the center of the room should be integral cove base. Stack base can be used where needed on smaller walls that don't face the center of the room. This is usually between outside and inside corners and on the end cap of a die wall. Stack base should only be used where necessary and is not a shortcut to save time and materials. You will achieve the needed cove at the bottom of the stack base using SpeedFlex and your disposable radius tool. When cutting EcoGrip sheets, use a utility knife and hook knife. The utility knife is used to make straight cuts by scoring the material approximately 70% through. The hook knife can then be used to cut the remaining 30%. This ensures that you don't cut through the sheet, damaging the underlying sheet on your stack. This will also prolong your blade life because you will not hit the subfloor with your utility blade. Start by fitting the sheet tightly against the base before making any cuts. Pay special attention to door frames, drains, and penetrations, as these areas will later be sealed using SpeedFlex liquid weld. Use a straight edge and press down firmly to ensure straight, tight cuts around the perimeter. For inside and outside corners, make sure your cuts are clean and accurate. Outside corners should always be 90-degree box corners, where the weld is only visible on one side of the corner. They are never to be cut and welded at 45 degrees. To create a 90-degree outside corner, the second relief cut of the outside corner will be made on the outside of the existing EcoGrip material and not on the wall. This will put the edge of the material 1/4 inch past the wall, ensuring that it does not create a 45-degree outside corner weld. For penetration cuts, such as around gas or water lines, use your hook knife to carefully cut around the pipes, leaving as little gap as possible. After cutting, trim any excess base material to ensure everything fits with precision. With the sheets cut and laid out, it's time to prepare the floor for gluing. Clean the subfloor one final time, vacuuming any remaining dust or debris. Check carefully to make sure there are no imperfections in the subfloor, as this will be your last chance to repair it. When applying glue, it is important to work efficiently to avoid any premature setting of the adhesive. Ensure the back of each sheet is clean before applying glue. EcoGrip uses a 2-part epoxy adhesive. Working time is approximately 20 minutes, set time is 60 minutes, and full cure is 8 hours. You should glue in sections of 400 square feet, so you have time to come back and perform the post-glue checklist. Much larger and more time-consuming problems can arise if you attempt to glue too large an area at one time. Before application, be sure to cut the FRP strips using a piece of base cap as a guide. Also mark the top of the base with a marker to make sure the glue does not get applied above the wall base. Mix the glue according to the manufacturer's instructions and apply it evenly with your trowel. Do not overmix the adhesive. Only mix until you achieve a solid color and the color swirls are no longer present. The trowel size is 332 by 332 by 332 V-notch. Be sure to glue the entire floor and wall base area. Adhesive should be troweled down to the drain fixtures, with no subfloor visible once completed. Once adhesive is applied, immediately lay the sheets into place, working methodically to avoid air pockets. Timing is critical here. The floor must be rolled with a 100-pound roller and wall base secured before the 60-minute set time. After adhesive application, immediately start with post-glue checklist. Roll the floor with 100-pound roller in order to seat the material in the glue and push any air bubbles out of the base, seams, and penetrations. Push down and fasten the top of the wall base with a brad nailer or stapler to eliminate air pockets below the base and to achieve a level finish. Check all seams and drains to make sure the floor is laying level to the glue and not sticking up. Once you have rolled the floor, you can check for remaining air bubbles using the handle of the screwdriver to tap on the floor. If there is an air bubble trapped, it will sound hollow and differ from the flooring that is set properly. Work any extra bubbles out with your 100-pound floor roller. Once the glue is cured, it's time to groove and tape the seams. Use a power groover with a 6.5mm blade to create a clean, even groove along each seam. The vertical seams and the seams close to walls or obstructions will be grooved using the hook knife. Be precise. The depth of the groove should match the thickness of the material to ensure a good weld later. All grooved seams should be 1/4 inch wide and extend to 90% depth in a V shape. The SpeedFlex liquid weld material needs a certain volume of material for the chemical reaction to take place correctly. Any groove that is not wide and deep enough can prevent the SpeedFlex from reaching full strength. One good way to check your seam size is to use a piece of EcoGrip material turned vertically to inspect the groove. The seam should match the width of EcoGrip material you are inspecting with. Carefully tape both sides of the seams to protect the material from the SpeedFlex adhesive that will be applied later. A 1mm gap should be left on either side of the seam to allow for human error. When taping outside corners, make sure to create a 3/8 to 1/2 inch groove, ensuring extra strength for foot traffic and impacts from hand trucks and pallets. Outside corners are the only seam that should be larger than 1/4 inch width. Inside corners do not need to be grooved at all. Instead, we create a 1/4 inch gap on either side of the corner with the tape. This can be inspected with a scrap of eco material to be sure you are leaving exactly 1/4 inch on both sides of the corner. Now we'll apply SpeedFlex liquid weld to the seams. SpeedFlex must be acclimated to room temperature before use. Note that all seams and seals should be masked off with seam tape prior to applying SpeedFlex liquid weld. There is no situation where you install liquid weld without using seam tape. Start by loading your SpeedFlex gun with the cartridge and tip. When opening a new cartridge, you will purge some material before installing the static mixing tip. Once you see both parts of the cartridge coming out equally, the cartridge is ready for the mixing tip and for application. Once the mixing tip is installed, apply a small amount to a scrap piece of material to make sure the color is solid. If swirling color is ever observed, stop using and purge the cartridge until the color is solid again. Apply the SpeedFlex in a smooth, continuous motion along the groove. SpeedFlex has a 4-minute work time, so it's very important to move as quickly as possible during this process. One installer can apply the bead into the seam, while the other uses a putty knife to push it into the seam and smooth out the surface. For the optimal aesthetic, it's required to do a double pass over each seam. To achieve this, the tape must be clean and free of extra SpeedFlex material on the first pass. This will allow you to leave the tape down on the flat seams after the first application. Any extra material left on the tape will harden and cause problems pulling up the tape later. Note, inside corners will have the seam tape removed immediately and do not require 2 passes. Once the first coat is applied and the tape is cleaned, allow 30 minutes of time for the SpeedFlex to cure and cool down. Once cured, use a small piece of 150 grit sandpaper wrapped around a small scrap of Eco Grip and carefully sand down the SpeedFlex seam without sanding the tape. This will create a better bond for the second coat and smooth down any imperfections left on the first coat. Dust off the sanded material and apply the second coat of SpeedFlex. The second coat will be a very small bead that is only intended to fill in the shrinkage and create a smooth, consistent seam. The tape will be removed as soon as the second coat is applied. Do not let the SpeedFlex cure before removing the tape on the final pass. Once the SpeedFlex sets, inspect each seam to ensure it's fully cured and flush with the flooring. If for any reason the SpeedFlex doesn't harden completely, cut that area of the seam out and reinstall with new tape. When working with corners, inside or outside, the same SpeedFlex process applies. Use the SpeedFlex to weld all edges and corners tightly. Inside corners will be struck with a caulking radius tool to create a smooth radius weld. For stack base installations, the same welding method is used as the inside corner. Inside corners in stack base will require you to mask off 1/4 inch on each side of the seam with tape and use the radius tool to create a hygienic cove. Any seal struck with the radius tool does not need 2 coats, unless there is an aesthetic issue that needs to be addressed. The tape should be removed immediately on these details. Outside corners need to be filled completely with SpeedFlex to ensure they are tough and durable to impacts. Once filled, use a flat putty knife to smooth out the weld before removing the tape. For base cap installation, you'll be working with either PVC, stainless steel, or aluminum base caps. Each type has its pros and cons depending on the environment. The corners must be cut and the base cap pieces dry fit before applying sealant and fastening. Once the piece is dry fit and ready to install, apply a 1/4 inch bead of EcoGrip sealant to the top of the wall base. The base cap strip can now be pushed down on top of the wall base and into the sealant and fastened. Fasten the cap using the supplied self-tapping stainless steel screws spaced evenly every 8 inches. For vertical terminations that don't have a door frame, use a vertical piece of cap cut at 45 degrees at the intersection of the horizontal and vertical sections. Look over the entire installation and apply clear silicone to any gaps at the top of the base cap. This is usually needed at inside and outside corners. Even though the cap is sealed underneath, the clear silicone creates a clean aesthetic and provides a completely sealed appearance to any inspectors, facilities, and end users. Every plumbing fixture needs to have a stainless steel collar to retain the EcoGrip warranty. Any floor found not to have stainless drain detail will have its warranty voided, and the contractor that installed the floor will be removed from our approved list of installers. Identify which drain collars fit each drain and prepare to recess them into the material prior to sealing and fastening them. Once the collar is mocked up in the correct position around the drain, use a ballpoint pen to mark the outside of the drain collar. Set the depth of your router bit with the thickness of drain collar, 1/16 inch, or possibly slightly deeper to allow for the sealant. Router the inside of your pen lines at this depth accordingly. If done correctly, you should see the entire pen line when finished. Any route that passes through the line will be a gap later. Once routing is complete, mock up the collar inside of your route to be sure it is sitting flush with the EcoGrip material. Sometimes adjustments to depth need to be made depending on the height of the drain fixture, which can alter the depth of the router. After dry fitting the drain collar and ensuring a flush fit, make marks through the pre-drilled holes in the collars, and use a hammer drill to create anchor holes for the stainless steel screws. A 5/16 inch hammer drill bit is used at a depth of 1.5 inches. Press lead anchors into each drilled hole and apply 2 even beads of EcoGrip sealant underneath the stainless steel collar. One near the inside and one near the outside. The collar can now be fastened with the stainless steel screws. Be sure to push down the collar as you fasten down the screws so an inaccurate hole doesn't move your collar out of the routed area. Once installed, clean any extra sealant with acetone or denatured alcohol and a rag. A final bead of EcoGrip sealant can be applied if there is any gap between the collar and the drain fixture itself. Thresholds are installed where flooring transitions from one area to another. Every transition from EcoGrip to another finish should be terminated with the supplied heavy-gauge stainless threshold. Measure and cut the threshold to fit the width of the transition, ensuring a tight fit against door frames. When it is necessary to make turns with the transition, miter the corners at 45 degrees where they meet. Transition strips are installed using the same process as the drains. Drill anchor holes. Apply sealant and fasten with the supplied lead anchors and stainless steel screws. The side with the pre-drilled holes should always be on the EcoGrip side of the transition, with the anchor holes drilled through the EcoGrip. For final sealing, ensure all penetrations such as gas lines, water lines, and door frames are properly sealed using SpeedFlex liquid weld. When installed correctly, the flooring should act as a swimming pool liner, preventing any moisture from penetrating. Apply sealant to all breaks, door frames, conduits, soda beer chases, and any other penetration points to ensure a watertight seal. Each seal point needs a clean, debris-free surface for liquid weld application. Penetration and door frame seals should be installed exactly like inside corner and flat base applications. This means the tape is set at 1/4 inch from center of each side, allowing for a 1/4 inch bead of SpeedFlex to be applied and struck with a radius tool. Remove seam tape immediately after striking with the radius tool. Remember to leave as much liquid weld as possible, as the strength of the seal depends on the chemical reaction. Do not try to apply small beads like you would with silicone or with other one-part sealants.
Still true.
Before completing the installation, perform a thorough walkthrough. Inspect all seams, corners, and sealing points. Ensure that all drains are correctly installed, flush, and sealed, and that there are no gaps or visible flaws. Check the base cap installation and make sure it's secure and sealed.
Thank you for participating in the EcoGrip flooring installation presentation today. We hope you found it informative, but if you have any additional questions, call 1-800-767-5754. Our technical services department will be happy to answer any questions you have. Remember, the quality of your installation is our top priority. We're here to help every step of the way.